A conflict theorist might ask something like, does everyone who has the drive and ability have an equal chance to succeed? They might also ask, how large are the differences in income or wealth and power, and why? Well, what do you think? If you go to a state university, do you have the same opportunities as someone who went to Harvard or Yale? If you come from a poor home, would you expect to have the same kinds of opportunities available to you as someone who came from a wealthy family? If you are a racial or ethnic minority, would you expect to have the same opportunities, the same life experiences, the same life chances as someone who came from the majority group? Given what you know, does gender have an effect on your life chances, your ability to get ahead and make money and acquire status in society? So if belonging to any of these categories, whether it's a class category or a race or ethnic category or gender category, if belonging to any of those categories poses some kind of barrier to success and you're not able to convert your skills into some kind of payoff at the same rate, then that would suggest that the system of meritocracy in the United States is somehow flawed. So as you go through this lesson, think for yourself, does merit alone really explain what people get in society? Do our ideals as a nation really match the reality of social inequality in the United States? One of the challenges that a conflict theorist might pose to the meritocratic argument is that social class matters, that the kinds of resources that you might have from a higher class background might give you an edge that someone from a lower class background might not have. Let's try to get a sense of exactly how large the differences in income and wealth in our society are. For the fun of it, let's use money as a measuring stick. Let's also simplify things by saying that there are three distinct classes: the upper, the middle, and the lower. As it turns out, much of the ownership of industry in the United States is in the hands of a really small number of people, say the top 1% or so. Let's compare the amount of wealth held by that top 1% of wealth holders with those in the middle class. We're going to make kind of a weird graph. Let's say that we took all of the people in the United States and lined them up from the poorest to the richest, and we pulled the family from the middle. Welcome to the middle class. Estimates vary by source and by year, but using information available from the Census Bureau and the Federal Reserve and other government surveys, we can say that the median household makes around $51,000 per year. To get a visual understanding of what this looks like, let's say that we were able to take that median household and cash out all of their income into $1 bills and lay them down end to end. That line of dollar bills would go on for about 5 miles. In any given year, the family spends a lot of that money, but hopefully manages to save some as wealth. That is, they've set it aside in maybe bank accounts or retirement accounts or something like that. Or maybe they have it invested in the value of their house. So how much wealth does the median family have? Maybe about $69,000. That is, if you include the value of the equity in the house. Laid end to end, that number of dollar bills would go on for about 6 2/3 miles. Now let's take a look at the top 1% of wealth holders, what I'll call the upper class. Now there's some variation in what they have, depending on the source of the survey or the source of data used, but they have on average $8.4 million in wealth. That would be enough to go for 814 miles, roughly the distance from Indianapolis to Orlando. However, there's an elite upper class, just a fraction of that top 1%, and they are extraordinarily wealthy. On average, the people in this group would have $10.8 billion. If we cashed out what one of those families owned and laid the dollar bills end to end, it would be enough to go for about 1 million miles. That would be enough to go from the Earth to the moon and back twice. Conflict theorists might look at these kinds of figures and see the basis for some kind of a social problem. And there may or may not be a social problem here, but it serves as the basis for further inquiry and study. Conflict theorists might look at figures like these and say, look, this is ridiculous. There's no reason that anyone should have access to that many resources. No one works that hard or has that many skills to be so far above everyone else in terms of the resources available to them and the power that comes along with that. A structural functionalist might instead look at this and say, no, people pretty much get what they deserve, and this is indicative of a healthy and functioning society. So both of these views might have strong points, but what do you think is information like this indicative of some underlying social problem, or does it indicate that societies are working the way that we expect them to in terms of the allocation of resources? So both the conflict theorists and the structural functionalists have their viewpoints, and they're both useful to some extent, but they both have their flaws. But what do you think? Which is more useful to understanding social inequality in the United States?
Vizi online texts are a new kind of textbook, built with the help of great subject matter experts. These new learning resources have already helped thousands of students succeed. Our original content uses animations, simulations, video and graphics, self-assessments, exercises, and review materials to engage students in their study. Our approach is proven to improve learning outcomes, and that's why Vizi exists, to transform lives by making education more engaging.